Mr. Chair. Thank you. Good day to my colleagues, to the people of this territory, to the people of the Virgin Islands. Today is a very emotional day for me because as I listen to my colleagues in this institution speak about their family members, my mother too died of cancer. I watched this woman work her entire life to raise her children and make us who we are. I watched this woman do everything in her power to make sure her children knew God and everything that she could do so I could stand here in these chambers today. And a lot of people don't know why she ended up dying of cancer so quickly. She got knocked down on a crosswalk by a government employee driving a government vehicle, and she died 5 months later, not only from her injuries, but also from cancer. And as a member of this institution, while my colleague across the aisle shared how emotional she was about making sure she could take care of her mother, she had no problem coming into these chambers and cursing mine like a dog.
30 seconds.
And I will never allow anybody in this institution to disrespect that woman. Today is her birthday, just like my colleague, Senator Nouvelle Francis. Okay? We should know how to respect people in here. I will never disrespect anybody's parents, their family members, because I know what it's like to have a parent to die from cancer. I know what it's like to have a mother to suffer. But please allow my mother to rest in peace.
Time.
And while my colleague chose to attack my mother over a bill, I offer nothing but blessings to hers. We are not the same. While my colleagues told me how proud they were of me for not attacking back, it's because of that woman is why I didn't. Because I am her daughter, I am her child. So as I go into the 36th legislature, it is my hope that these things end here today. Thank you very much, and I support every single person in this block.
All right, thank you very much.
President, I move to waive Rule 403, 404, 405, and 509A of the 35th Legislature to Special Order Bill number 35-0248, a resolution to petition the United States Congress. Y'all funny. A petition to the United States, the Virgin Islands, to authorize the people of the Virgin Islands to elect the Attorney General of the Virgin Islands in accordance to Rule 509B to today's session agenda and place it as an item before the last item in the last block. I so move.
Second. Motion properly made by Senator.
I just wanted to put on the record for clarity. When it comes to my piece of legislation 350248, which I attempted to special order, I have attempted to special order this piece of legislation about 4 or 5 times during the session. We do have a rule in regards to circulation, but because I have done this on several occasions, many of my colleagues told me, do not give me any more copies. All the copies are here, to include the president, who told me he kept his copy, don't give him any more. So I find it very ironic that now, after it's already completed, we're hearing this story after the fact. But I do appreciate you giving me this chance to put that on the record. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you for this opportunity. We had a very robust committee of the whole, where we spoke quite a bit on several of these pieces of legislation, and quite a bit of them had a lot to do with economic growth, economic building in this territory, which I soundly support. We had several concerns with the piece of legislation that had to do with the marina, and to be honest with you, out of everything in this block, that was the one I got the most calls on. You know, these were bills in regards to businesses opening up, businesses creating, I think it had apartments, someone wanted, what do you call those things, the water providing, where the haulers come and get water. So it was quite a bit of legislation where I saw the potential for assisting people in our territory and for our growth. But when it came to this marina, the amount of phone calls and concerns people had,
1 minute.
I had to boil it down to logic. I had to boil it down to economic development. I had to boil it down to what type of impact it would have. And in the research and even listening to the individuals that came before this body, that marina was there from in the 80s. That marina was there in 1995. That marina was there in 2017. So this is not a new project. This is a revitalization of a marina that previously existed. So for me, this was not a breaking of any new environment. One of the things people had a concern with was potential access to the shorelines. But we did ask the individuals here on the floor, they made it clear to us that there will be no blockage of any shorelines. There has never been a gate at that facility, and that satisfied my concerns as well. So I will be voting in the affirmative for all of these pieces of legislation, and it's my hope that the economic boom that we expect in the territory will be realized. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the time.
Thank you very much.
Once again, to the people of the territory, to my colleagues, I am in support of several pieces of legislation in this particular block. As it relates to number 35-0108, I am quite familiar with this piece of legislation, an act appropriating $20 million from the settlement agreement between the government of Virgin Islands and the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, etc. I ultimately found out what was going on with this piece of legislation when I submitted to take some of the Epstein monies to utilize to build mental health facilities in both the District of St. Thomas and St. Croix. And I got a message back that Senator Dwayne DeGraff had already submitted for this $20 million. And I also was told that in the negotiations, that it was already negotiated that between Epstein and the government, that monies had to be set aside for these senior citizen facilities, 20 million as well as the mental health facilities. So I was very happy that Senator DeGraff, in his wisdom, was able to submit this piece of legislation to take that settlement and put it into fruition and write it into the law. So thank him for bringing that legislation forward. I also would like to say that as it relates to 35-0179, I know our lottery has had some issues with illegal gaming here in the territory, and our lottery system supports quite a bit of things from education across the board within our government. And we have to make sure protect that lottery system. And this piece of legislation shores up some securities for them so they could continue existing and thriving in our community, as well as making sure that they get the necessary funding that they need to make sure help the territory. I also would like to speak to 35-0399, an act amending Title 16, Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 2, Section 99, establishing a mandatory minimum bail amount for domestic violence cases. I think this will assist with just shoring up that individuals that choose to go this route know that there's a set amount, and it's not up to a judge to decide whether or not. Because if you're going to decide to put your hands on somebody, I think it should have something there to make sure that you are taken in to process you accordingly. We also had several other pieces of legislation. I wanted to speak a little bit on 35 24-0409. And this piece of legislation also came from another one of my minority colleagues in regards, Senator Carry On, in regards to salvage vehicle purchases, junk vehicles. We know we have had quite a bit of issues here in the territory. I know during the
30
last
seconds.
session, one of our other colleagues brought forward a piece of legislation with cleaning up and making sure abandoned vehicles, even in yards, were cleaned up. And this is an additional assistance to help the BMV in making sure that when these types of vehicles are throughout our territory, we have a clear definition. And some individuals shipping in cars into the territory and giving them the right to really dive in and understand what these vehicles are, because some of them are harming individuals here because they're not good. So we'll be able, due to the definition, we'll be able to clear up and identify a little bit better what these vehicles are so that people would not be harmed by some of the devious things people do. So, Mr. Vice President, I would like to thank you, and I will be voting in the affirmative for several pieces of these legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Francis Halliger. Senator Dwayne.
Good evening to my colleagues, the people of the territory. I rise in support of several pieces of legislation in this block. I want to speak a little bit on 350423, an act approving the Fifth Amendment lease agreement between the government of the Virgin Islands and Coral World, VI Inc., etc. As you know, Coral World has been around for quite some time. They have lent to the advancement and the tourism enhancement product of us here in the territory. And I know that they're going through a transition of owners, but the fact that our government is going to be participating and extending this lease, I think it's a positive thing, not only for the business, but also for us as residents who have enjoyed Coral World over the years and tourists alike. 35-0425. I know this had to do with a piece of legislation my colleague had brought forward previously, and we've made some adjustments and we're bringing it back like I supported it previously. I am happy to do so again. 35-0426. I have a little bit of reservation with that one because it speaks to an act authorizing the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority to sell electricity to any beneficiary in the Virgin Islands South Shore Trade Zone without regulations by the Public Service Commission of the Virgin Islands. I am kind of leery of our electrical company, and when certain things are done without any regulation, always gives me some sort of a pause. So while I'm here, I'm going to review the piece of legislation again before I make an ultimate decision, but I'm not sold on that one as yet. I also want to touch a little bit on 35-0431. This one kind of hurts my heart because I was very, very impressed with DPNR and the hard work that they put in with interacting with our community, with reaching out to the public, with gathering data, and really collecting the information as it relates to our land and water use plan. Yesterday, when we had an opportunity to speak to them, there was one page that caused a little bit of concern for me. And I kind of wish that we could have amended it out. But if I,
1 minute.
the fact that it's still in here, in my opinion, I would be quite hypocritical to vote for this land and water use plan. On page 88 of the plan, and page 89, there's a specific diagram in there that speaks to the revamping of the Julia Sprouse School. And as an individual that fought very hard against selling Whistling Key, because I shared these diagrams that were circulating months before we even had this for a vote.
30 seconds.
And after speaking to the commissioner and individuals from his team, they shared that this plan came from individuals that run an organization and a Bloomberg initiative, basically to revamp the entire Julia Sprouse School to offices and a whole series of things. I have always believed that even though we needed a school in St. John, that it was never really about shifting. I personally believed it was more about taking over that area. And even though these drawings
Time.
were, could I just quickly wrap up? And even though these drawings were in circulation, everybody kept telling me it's not what I think it is. It's not, I keep spreading wrong information. But here it is, smack dead in the middle of this land and water use plan. So when people tell me that I didn't know what I was speaking about, it's here. So I hope that we have an opportunity. The only blessing with this piece of legislation is that the legislature can amend it. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the time, and I will vote in the affirmative for some of these legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Alma Francis.
We consider Bill number 35-0429 to be placed on the agenda. I so move.
Motion properly made for adding Bill number 35-0429 to the agenda by Senator Alma Francis Heidegger, seconded by DeGraff. Senator DeGraff, hearing no objection, so ordered.